Welcome back to Biff, a podcast about superhero TV shows, movies, and unbridled positivity. My name is Dan Morin, and I am joined this week by my joyous, energetic, just unfailingly upbeat co-host, John Moltz is here. Hi, John.
I just want to say that I have not eaten any monsters in the past, 48 hours at least.
That's good.
I don't know what you guys have heard.
Safety first. Guy English is also here. Hi, Guy.
I did not realize that you were the heart and soul of joyousness on this show. I really didn't realize that. You do all of the work and you bring the positivity.
Found out last week.
Well, yeah. I've been on vacation for a week, so I just, I've recharged. Did something happen? Did I miss something?
No.
No, everything's fine? Everyth's good?
No. Look, honestly, James...
We know you listen to the episode.
We know you listen, yeah. A, we know. B, James, if you're listening, thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Yes.
We were just laughing because it was like more negative than we usually do.
Yeah.
And,
we said that last week.
And I'm legitimately happy. Like, Dan, you weren't here last week, so I was giving you crap.
Oh, I heard it. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I know you did.
I mean, just in the grapevine, not like I listened or anything, but
You know what?
Sure.
No, you texted us, and I felt legitimately bad. I felt like I'd hurt my friend's feelings. I really did. I'm like, come on, man. I don't mean it that way. Like,
it's fine. It's fine. Everything's okay. No, you're crying.
Well, I mean, you were like, okay, well, I feel bad. We can stop watching Stargirl. I'm like, no, man, that's not.
That wasn't really the point.
It was, it was a stinker of an app. But like,
plus,
right? Yeah, we're going to talk about
episode.
Yeah, we'll talk. There's stuff to talk about. All right. Yep. Well, we are still for the moment pulling triple duty. This is the second to last episode of this season of Legends of Tomorrow. Which will take something off our plate after next week. And then we'll cover Stargirl and What If later in the episode. But let's kick things off talking about this penultimate Legends episode, which is season 6 episode. I usually have these pulled up right in front of me, and now I'm stalling for time as I try to remember what episode is this. It's 14.
14. I was
There Will Be Brood.
I can't believe that I knew that. Yeah.
Directed, I should note, by Maisie Richardson Sellers, who played Amaya and Charlie. So that's the fourth cast member to direct a show this season. Katie Lotz, David Ramsey, Jess McCallan, and Maisie Richardson Sellers. So that's a good lineup there. But I believe Mr. English is on recap duty, so we'll hand things over to him.
Yeah. Also, I think. Maybe I've mentioned this before, but it's my understanding that the TV shows bringing up their actors and allowing them to direct is something that came out of TNG. Like they would boot camp those people, and like Frakes is a director now, and there's a bunch of them that have directed different episodes. And this seems to be following the same kind of thing, right? Like take your actors, they want to learn how to direct. Yeah, boot camp them.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of franchises do it, especially because they realize they have like a bunch of talent there, and I think a lot of actors do it because they realize you can keep working, right? Like acting gigs come and go.
You're not going to be pretty forever.
Yeah, and I think just in general, it's a volatile career.
David
whereas
Ramsey,
David Ramsey is going to be beautiful forever.
Yeah,
let's not beat around that bush.
Even Frakes, though, like, Frakes is like, he looks like a disheveled dad sometimes, like that's which is a role. It's a good role.
That's what he played in Picard.
It's great that they brought him back for things like Picard and do voices on Lower Decks and stuff. But like, his bread and butter is directing. I think of Gregory Smith as an actor who I enjoyed on a show called Everwood that was on I think it was when it was still the WB. But he's directed a ton of the Arrowverse shows, including Legends and Arrow and a bunch of other stuff. So. Yeah, and I think he makes his career predominantly as a director now, which, hey, if you have tough time booking acting gigs for whatever reason, then, it's good to have steady work in the field that you like.
Yeah. Well, it's not a level up, but maybe it is because you get to
it's a diversifying at least, right? Like you got multiple talents.
If you're interested in the field, which clearly you work in the field, I can definitely see being like, you know what, I'd like to try my hand at that. And it's cool and it's exciting. So yeah, I love it whenever cast members or former cast members direct stuff. So anyway, that aside, Legends, There Will Be Brood. In this episode, nothing happens that I care about.
Whoa.
That's not true. That's not true. I actually wrote real notes for this one. Okay. Zori finds Constantine and he's being a dick. He tells him that Bishop convinced him to go after the fountain. Turns out he's a hologram and he's really on the ship with Bishop, who manages to take over the Wave Rider, trapping Astra and Spooner on board. They find themselves stranded in Texas in 1920s, and Spooner ends up meeting her mom. Astra makes a real stretch that maybe Spooner's mom knows something about the fountain. No idea. None. How you get from point A to point B there, other than they're drawing a straight line between things that they want to do. And so that turns out a great insight, Astra. Meanwhile, in the woods, while they're looking for the fountain, John finds a young Spooner and asks her if she's seen anything with the fountain. And he ends up going back with her to her mother's place and encounters both Spooner and Astra. Turns out the fountain somehow is an alien being, and John wants Spooner to team up with him so they can subvert the past, making it so that she doesn't go through her trauma. And he manages to get what he wants. He gets all powered up again. Spooner, understandably, wants to stick around and save her mom, who's about to be driven off her land in a real bad way by a bunch of what are they, oil people? Like, it's Texas, so it's like a bunch of like not generic. I mean, well, they're pretty generic, like black suited cowboy white dudes who want to displace people and take their land and get the resources. So that's basically all.
Tale as old as time.
Yeah, I mean, they may as well be stormtroopers in Western gear. You know what I mean? It's like they're bad guys. Yeah. Spending your time. So she's eventually convinced that she's going to go and help John. That does not go particularly well. What ends up happening is Spooner and her mom and Astra and Spooner have. Astra tells Spooner that I'm going to lose my friend, which, okay, I guess so. I mean, I would have liked a little bit of show not tell there, but they've been kind of doing that this past season. And sort of the plan that is arrived at is that young Spooner will be taken to the fountain, and older Spooner will stand her ground and destroy these white Texas men, which this week feels very, very good. I think that is completely appropriate to do.
That is odd timing, isn't it?
Topical.
A little too topical to be honest. Anyway, it turns out that John double crosses Bishop and steals a serum and then injects himself with it, only to discover that Bishop was 10 steps ahead of him and it was laced with, quote, deadly poison. Thanks for the adjective on that one.
Well, not just like disability, like debilitating poison, just, but you gotta poison.
I mean, I enjoyed it because he's over the top, and I'm like,
it kind of fits.
It clicked in my head that I'm like, that's a funny thing to say to somebody. Like, it's like a real like mustache twirling sort of line, Anyway, meanwhile, Bishop, because he's 10 steps ahead of everybody, has also set up a bomb in the egg incubation area, and Mick ends up getting blown up trying to save the eggs. I'm not even going to talk about the B plot because we got to keep moving. Bishop's plan, it turns out, is to kill the sentient alien mushroom so that aliens can come back and inhabit the Earth. The conceit being that the mushrooms are connected to the mycelial network from Star Trek Discovery, and somehow, they're protecting the Earth. Cool. So to overcome that, they've got to, destroy the fountain, and the fountain is the mushroom, and everything's coming together. And it makes sense-ish, close enough. Like, I feel good that at least these things have combined together. Ultimately, John succumbs to the poison and turns into plant matter and then disintegrates, seeming pretty dead, like real dead. And that is basically the show, or the episode. Very high level. I skipped a bunch.
The show's over.
Well, yeah, I mean, I skipped a bunch of stuff because I didn't want to get too into it, and The B plot is mostly the other team hanging out, trying to get a time ship, and so they call Kayla, and then Kayla comes, and then the egg thing happens, and it's just the only real result of that is that Mick died, well, apparently died. He got blown up real good, trying to save, I guess, one of his children. It's his child, so I get it. It's cool. So we've got 2 dead cast members, and I don't know, a bunch of backstory that I get, but it feels belabored. It's not as fun as I want a giant teddy bear beating something up. It's really what I want.
It's not a wacky episode, but I have to say I enjoyed a lot of it, and I actually felt like Spooner kind of finally clicked for me as a character in this episode. I liked her way better here than I liked her in most of the rest of the season, mainly because there was something at stake for her, and she was more than a rootin' tootin' cowboy.
I agree, and that's what I've been asking for this whole time. Right. And I got it, and I was like, okay, well. And I guess maybe it's because it's the penultimate one. It felt like, I don't know, there was a lot going on.
I liked the twist that she was abducted from the 20s rather than, as she believed, her mother being abducted from the 80s or whatever. Right. I thought that was kind of cool, and I did not anticipate that, and thought it was clever. And I liked the relationship with the mom, and kind of just trying to figure out can we save her. And I like her and Astra together. I mean, I know you said they they haven't necessarily done all the work there, but I felt like those two, they make an interesting dynamic because they are similar in some ways, but also clearly very different in other ways.
To be fair, if they have established their friendship with anybody, it has been with Astra. I suppose I didn't appreciate that because they didn't flesh her out really until this episode. So it like Nate and Bayrod. I can see why those two goofballs get together and hang out. That makes sense. This one,
they sort of handed us that friendship too,
right? Because they
the instant Bayrod shows up, they're best buds.
Yeah. And I thought that the stuff with Constantine I liked it better again because they I think it's because I take your point last week about the spending a lot of time inside his head and just spending a lot of time with is he going to turn evil? Once it's done and it's all right, he's, if not a bad guy, at least a super morally gray guy now. I felt everybody was over the hump and being all right, we're going to run with it. The decision's been made. We've told you who this character is now, and we're just going to run with that for this episode, rather than sort of going back and forth about well, is he going to kick his addiction? Is he going to will love triumph all? Now that you've sort of bought into one decision, I felt I enjoyed where they went with him being, his usual crafty bastard, and then getting outsmarted at the end, which I didn't mind either.
Yeah, I agree, and it kind of goes back to the, what were we calling it? Oh, the Schrodinger's canary thing, where Laurel comes back and it's is she good or is she bad? Have you decided, or are you just writing stuff?
It's interesting not to know. Yeah.
I think that's an abuse of Schrodinger's cat, because the question is the cat in the box or not, or is it dead or not? And we all know that the cat is bad because cats are bad.
Cats are awful. They gotta go.
They're terrible people.
Yeah.
They're great cats, though. I mean, I don't
know. No. Turns out James has poisoned the well, and now we hate kittens.
Man, I got my work cut out
cats.
for me.
I said cats. Kittens are cute.
Kittens are cute. Yeah, cats.
They're also terror.
Yeah, don't say kittens aren't cute, or else Lex will stop listening to this show.
Yeah, that was a real threat.
But I guess overall for me, I just wanted to say, for an episode that did not lean hard into some of the stuff I liked the best about Legends, I still thought it was pretty good. It kept me more engaged than some of the other more recent episodes. Maybe because it's just getting to the end of the season thing and stuff ramps up a bit. And it feels with knowing that Mick and John are not regular characters next season, you kind of knew something was going to happen to them anyways.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, in that way, I liked it. I guess I'm just not looking for this out of this show. It felt,
for the most part, it was too serious overall. In the resolution of these characters, for Spooner and for John, the I guess the B plot, I don't know how we're C plot was a little more wacky because you got to run against time to get these eggs. But those other two plots were fairly serious. And
True.
It's not, it's okay, but it's not exactly what
it's not A+ material from them, but it's neither. I would say is it C material.
No,
it's firmly in the B range.
Right. Exactly.
Which is okay. That's all right.
Feels like you've just reinvented a rating system that I worked really hard on.
I mean, those are just letters. I can't say what they mean.
Right.
This is B territory, Biff territory. B is for Biff.
So
brought it around.
I like it. Things I liked about this. Mushroom connection. Weirdly, I was like, "That's cool. That's cool." The fountain,
and I liked the mushroom.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I loved it.
The big ass sparkly mushroom.
Yeah, that was cool.
I loved it, and I love the notion that, like, mushrooms are weird. Like fungi are their own thing. They're not plants. They're not animals. They're not minerals. They're them.
They make 20 questions really hard.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you were playing 20 questions and you had mushroom on your mind and somebody asked you, is it a vegetable? You would be a huge dick if you didn't say yes.
Well, now you've gotten into my 20 question strategy.
Well, not technically.
Yeah. Nobody wants to play 20 questions with a guy that's cutting hairs, like splitting hairs that thinly. It's like, come on, man. Is it going to be... Can I eat it in my vegetarian?
It's in my
masala?
salad. It's a vegetable.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I forgot that John was vegetarian because he talks about having a mushroom masala.
Oh, right.
And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And it's very British. Like, curry is as British as fish and chips at this point, and like he's a vegetarian. So, of course, mushrooms are good and meaty. And like, I'm like, oh, that is a weird, fascinating thing that some conscientious writer wrote. Like that's thoughtful, like actually getting into like, okay, who would this guy be? And it's like that makes sense. So I liked it. Also, just mushrooms in general I found cool. I thought that the interconnected thing made sense. I even liked the idea that they were like alien spores that were here to protect us. I'm like, that's trippy as hell, but I dig it. Well, sure, why not? Go for it. It's less silly than a bunch of other stuff we've had to take on. And broadly, I liked that aspect of it. I think one of the things that James was saying last week is that like it felt like an Arrow episode transplanted into Legends. And I kind of disagree, but I get it's taking itself seriously now, right? And
I mean, too seriously.
At least for this.
Too seriously.
At least for these episodes. And I feel like in some ways, knowing that, Matt Ryan is not going to reprise John Constantine, it felt like they wanted to give him an arc at the end there that was befitting of the character, rather than having him smushed by a giant teddy bear or something, which would feel like, man, John Constantine went out like a chump. And without saying too much as a spoiler, I have seen the preview for next week's episode. We haven't seen the last of John, in some form or another. But sure. He'll get his goodbye moment.
Does he come back as a Force ghost or as Geordie's mom in that episode where he has to?
Man, where's the episode?
Weirdly enough,
the episode I choose to forget of that show. I like every time I see that, like it's I scroll through season 7 probably, and I see that one, I'm like, man. I remember very little about that episode, and I just choose to think that it's not really there.
It ain't great. I do love that all I've got to say is Geordie's mom, and you've got like a little rant in your back pocket about like, man, I don't like that app.
Man, I don't even remember that one. I'm sure I've seen it, but I don't remember.
He's in a VR suit, and he has to control a probe that's in a spaceship where his mom is the captain, and like something's gone wrong. It doesn't
even pay off, right?
It doesn't. That's the thing.
You never really even find out what happened to her particularly. I mean,
you don't.
She's still dead, I guess, but they don't. Anyway,
it wasn't clear if it was aliens communicating to him or something or what. Like it's
okay. That's the one with his dad too, who's Ben Vereen.
Yeah, but I think he just appears on the.
I think he just chats. Yeah, he FaceTimes him basically.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I kind of remember.
Anyway,
that.
Whatever.
Anyways, we digress.
Yeah.
Do you want to rate this one, or do you have something to say, Dan?
Nope.
Okay.
I've said my piece.
You gave it a B?
Oh no, I will still give it a biff because I enjoyed it and I think that it was.
I think you're just giving a middle finger to James now.
Oh yeah, 100%. Let's be clear. I rate it in terms of how engaged I am in the show, and I did not find myself. Let me put it this way: I've watched other shows this very week that I feel like are shows that do not hold my attention as well. There is another superhero show that recently came back from a long hiatus. I had a hard time getting through that episode for a show that's been on for 6 years and that I've watched all of. And I feel very much like I'm checking out. I'm like, reading my phone. I'm pausing constantly to go do things.
I think I've already checked out of that show, right?
It's probably for the best, but it's just one of those things where it's like, look, if the show keeps me interested and I care about what happens to the characters, even if it's not their finest effort, I don't think this sinks to a totally meh sort of thing for me. So sure. I'm sticking with Biff.
You're being too coy by half because I don't actually know what show you're talking about.
It's Supergirl.
Okay. Yeah. I was going to say to put it in the chat, but okay, I'm so far behind on Supergirl that I'm also not surprised. Mostly because Flash is over, which would have been
right. That's the other one. Yes, shows that I do not pay attention to because I don't really care who lives and who dies.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess I'll go next. A weak Biff, mostly because they put in the work. They expanded upon Spooner's character, which has been sort of a sticking point for me. So giving them points for that. Not giving them points for that would have been just me being a dick. I've wanted that all season. They did it. We got it. It was pretty good. I liked it. I liked the conceit that the fountain and the mushroom are the same. I liked that the fountain was not an actual fountain. I just liked that concept. I liked it a lot. I felt that the episode was a little too self-serious on a show where I honestly just want a giant Bebo to smash Godzilla. I'm not looking for a lot. And well, actually, you know what? I am looking for a lot because that's a lot to ask. It's a
hard needle to thread.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to disparage that at all. Yeah, comedy is really hard. Comedy is really hard. And they've been nailing it. This season has felt like it's veered a little too much into self-serious territory. So, it's a weak Biff. They did a good job at something that I'm not jazzed about as much as I would like to be. And also, it's not like they've set up. This is the penultimate episode, which, as everybody knows, means that it's more ultimate than the other ones.
That's correct. Yep.
So I also don't think that they set up the finale. I don't know how it's going to be set up, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a battle of fun. There's going to be some heavy stuff going on there. So I guess we'll see. Weak Biff. But I guess I appreciate the effort put in. John?
So let me explain the rating system.
I would love if one of you would do that.
I'm new here myself, John, so please.
Biff is an A, okay? Weak Biff is a B. Anything in the B range. John Jr. is a C, and Alex is a D, okay?
Alex, so that's why we give
Alex
out so many
or
an F? I mean, I don't even know.
And a D and below.
Yeah,
I would say Alex is D and below, right?
Yeah, Alex isn't even interesting enough to be a dick.
We don't have a huge range for John Jr.
If you've been to college, like a expensive college, anytime in the last 20 years, this rating system will be very familiar to you.
Exactly. So I'm also giving it a weak Biff, i.e. a B. For basically the same reasons, like I said. I mean, it's just, I mean, I think it's the season has been too serious doing this stuff with John, and this episode is, somewhat emblematic of that, less so than a previous, the previous episode and some others this season, but it's still we appreciate the wacky fun maybe a little bit more, so. That's it.
All right. Well, there we go. We've done our ratings. We've done our due diligence. I do feel like maybe it's like James and I are kind of struggling for your souls. Like, and we like try to sway you to one direction or the other.
I think so too.
That's how it's playing.
I get that feeling.
Yeah.
I honestly didn't realize how compliant and manipulatable John and I were. Like, I felt like I was a pretty solid human being, and like, no,
I think you did. I think you did. I'm just seeing if you'll agree with me.
Well, I don't want to fight with anybody. That's all.
Fair. All right.
Which is not true. I love to fight with people, but
I know you do.
You know, broadly, not about superhero shows.
Let's. Should we move on to our second entry here?
Sure.
It's Stargirl. This is season 2, episode 4. I think that's right. Summer School, chapter 4. We open with Artemis visiting her parents in prison. She's very upset about the foster home she's in, which doesn't have football Sunday pass. Meanwhile,
this show hates foster parents, by the way.
It really does. It doesn't feel great about
Seriously. Yeah.
Wow. Honestly, being there's obviously bad cases, but being a foster parent is a noble thing. And like, I think it's got that fairy tale aspect of like, you know,
absolutely. It's
step parents or foster parents, you know,
Beth is talking to Chuck, trying to figure out what Eclipso is since they were warned by him last time. And she's also sort of half-heartedly trying to set her parents up on a date. She comes across a confidential file in the JSA database about Eclipso and doesn't know why it's confidential. Meanwhile, Pat has told Barb about the Black Diamond, and the court has found out about Eclipso from Beth, so they partially bring all their information together. We learned that Eclipso drove people to do bad things. Courtney promises not to rush in and says they're going to do their research. Cindy is meanwhile talking to Diamond and upset about it killing her stepmother. And she has a vision of her actual mother, which, you know, Eclipso is basically trying to get her to let go of the past and look at the future. It shows her a picture of the new ISA. Artemis is unhappy with her lunch. I did enjoy the line, how hard is it to buy whey protein? They didn't have any wheat protein. I recognized that actress, and it took me a while to figure out, and I realized it's because I know her from Twitter, where she posts a lot of comedy videos where she pretends to be people who are usually stupid people. Blair Erskine. She's all over the place. I was like, why do I know this actress? I cannot, and it took me a while before I looked her up.
That's so funny, because I was looking at her, I'm like, I know her, and I've laughed with her a lot, and this is a good comedy bit that she's doing, and I'm like, I can't place it. So, that's awesome. Yeah.
Artemis throws a football through the goalpost, making me wonder if she has powers. There's a couple other indications maybe that's the case.
Yeah, she's super strong.
Yeah. Mike, doing his paper route, picks up the paper which has the Crocs have broken out of prison. Of course, Crusher is standing right there, and they grab him. At school, Courtney offers Artemis an apple and tries to apologize, but Artemis isn't having it. Rick retakes his exam and aces it once again, and the teacher finally apologizes, even though Rick is a bit of a droopy dog about it. Isaac, the son of the fiddlers in the cafeteria, gets approached by Cindy, and she tries to recruit him. Pat sort of finds out that the Crocs had grabbed Mike, and he goes to the garage, and they have a proposition, which is they want to watch their daughter at football tryouts, and then they will break back into prison. So Pat takes them to the house and keeps them sort of on the down low, and we have a sequence of really great scenes where both Pat and Crusher try to have a conversation, and then Barb and Paula try to have a conversation and eventually bond about over their kids. Yolanda is serving milkshakes at the diner, and they're doing their research in the Black Diamond, which comes from Diablo Island, which has been removed from all the maps, but was rediscovered by a man named Bruce Gordon, who is both Bruce Wayne and Jim Gordon, I can only assume.
Yeah, they do a real Camino.
Is he from...
I have no idea. I only thought about that literally when I said it right now. I was like, why does that name sound so familiar?
I got it immediately because I was like, is it Bruce? Oh, it was first for some reason I was thinking, it's Bruce Wayne's father. And then no, that's
yeah, it was also named Bruce.
But what? Huh?
Yeah. Also, that guy's going to appear because he's handsome.
Oh yeah,
like that photo isn't aged well. He doesn't look like he's of the time at all. Like he's just he's like generic handsome dude that is definitely going to appear on the show.
So they're trying to find out about the diamond's origins. Meanwhile, Cindy takes Isaac to the lair and basically tells him that his dad was the fiddler and produces a violin, which he claims he cannot play. Court goes to do more research at a bookstore called The House of Secrets, which I love. That bookstore looks awesome. And of course, runs into the Shade, who knows who she is. She accuses him of killing Dr. Midnight, but he implies that Pat has not told her the whole truth. He also says there's a difference between bad and evil and reveals that Eclipso killed Charles McNider's daughter, who was 10 years old, which was the flashback scene we saw at the beginning of the season. When asked why he's in town trying to do this, he claims that he is bored, though not entirely convincingly, and tells Court to leave Eclipso to him, then disappears. We have a whole long sequence of Pat and the Crocs at the football game, including Artemis not doing very well until she realizes her parents are there to cheer her on. But then even though she approves, it is foiled as Cindy shows up the game with Diamond and hypnotizes her to think that her parents are being taken in by SWAT team, making her beat up Court and get in trouble, basically losing her slot. But the Crocs confess to Artemis that they're not innocent of the crimes. Courtney confronts Pat about Eclipso killing Charles's daughter, and he basically cops to that, but still seems to be withholding. Cindy tries to recruit Artemis, and we learn from a conversation between Pat and Barb that they have not told Court everything about Eclipso, but Court knows that Pat is holding back and decides she will go to ask the Shade. Meanwhile, in our final scene, Beth has thinks she's rebooted Chuck, but he doesn't remember her. But it turns out it's not Chuck. It's the actual Dr. Midnight, who has been trapped in the shadow dimension by the Shade, even though he's still alive.
That was a cool ending.
That was a cool ending. I did not quite know where they were going. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. Maybe he's not dead.
It's not the AI.
And they also changed
the dude.
Interestingly, they changed the actor, and I wonder if that was. It's no longer Henry Thomas. I was interested to learn, like as I was looking up, it's just somebody else, and I was like, oh, maybe they changed it because like it's the real version versus the AI version or something. And probably this guy was cheaper than Henry Thomas.
Well, I mean, remember they changed Sarah too, right? Like,
sure.
The first time we saw Sarah, she was like I don't know, like a scream queen, sort of like get sucked out into the ocean, kind of.
Right, but we did have Chuck for the entire season last year, so it's a little,
We did. I mean, I imagine they're going to want to show him on screen at some point, which means casting decisions about what that
and expense and costs and stuff. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, costs and exactly. Yeah.
But I thought. I kind of, so I know James was down in this last week, but I like the Shade, honestly. I think that guy's great.
I like the Shade too. That's I
enjoy.
Yeah, but James is seeing it from like I think British stuff.
The British stuff is over the top.
Right, but he's supposed to be like super old too, right? Like they talk about he's been around for like hundreds of years.
Yeah, he's a little cartoony. He's a little cartoony, but like his power, I continue to like his power set.
Me too.
Because I like the him zipping around in the bookstore
and the shadows,
and then of course the end.
It's effectively creepy without being or eerie, I guess I feel like is a better word maybe. Whereas Eclipso was outright kind of terrifying, I think, in the scenes that we have seen him.
He is manipulating the hell out of
Cindy.
Cindy, thank you. I mean, Andy just killed somebody, so that's not good.
And go ahead, John.
Well, just like the weird thing about this show is I think they are doing, or like particularly this season, but also like, like many of them in last season, doing a really good job of placing these bad guys in a much more nebulous area than just like they're super bad, because the Shade seems like he's probably got good intentions. He wants to destroy that diamond. And then the Crocs continue to be absolutely freaking delightful.
The best thing about this show. Honestly, if you'd call this show Sportsmaster and he was only in like half of the episodes, I would be all over it.
Yeah. I mean that whole the scenes in there, and just like the fact that they are so concerned about their daughter's welfare that they bust out of prison and are going to bust back in.
And I 100% believe them. They're crazy.
I did. The minute he said that, I was like, "Yep, he's doing it."
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. I love how supportive. They're supportive of each other. They're supportive of their daughter. They've got a good rapport. I love it. They're evil. They're bad. They're insane.
They're completely awful. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they murdered like the coach in the first season, right? Like they're clearly bad people, but yeah.
I know, but there's something about them that
they have this
really
twisted moral compass that actually, but it is a moral compass.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I like that he actually wants to be friends with Pat. He's like, okay, good point. Like, you tried to kill me and that soured our friendship. Say, okay, good point. Like, for him, it's not, I don't know. I guess it's like sportsmanship. I'm trying to frame it in the way he might see it. He's got to play a game against Pat, and if that means killing him, then that means killing him. But, after the game, nothing's stopping them getting a beer
hard
together.
Feelings, yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I quite enjoyed his point to Pat where he's like, oh, you gave up on the workouts, and Pat's like, oh, a lot of flexibility, stretching stuff, and then Pat's line about the like, how is prison? Is it terrible, or is it kind of fun like the Shawshank Redemption, which he does not get at all? But I thought that was very funny.
Those two actors play great together. I mean, Luke Wilson is obviously like he's got a bunch of comedy chops for sure, and like I don't know their name of this other guy, but he matches him. Like those are great scenes. Those are really really fun scenes.
He also has a good bit about they ask him about prison, and he says the gym's great. Which I think
I know.
Yeah. Made me laugh.
And I get conjugal visits, and I'm like, that is
I guess that's all you really want. Yeah.
It really fits that character. A, I can work out. B, I can get with my lady. Like, I sure. That sold. I understand you.
It is interesting to see how they're trying to evolve the ISA to be something, and I think they showed a little bit of this in the first season as well. Like, it's not monolithic, right? Like, it is. Right. You had a lot of stuff that was being driven by Icicle in the first season, who had this agenda, and most of the other people were not necessarily 100% on board. But there are cracks in the armor. In terms of like how, because in this episode he says, well, the Shade, Sportsmaster says the Shade was never really a team player. And they also said like, well, we weren't super into the whole ISA thing either. So it's kind of interesting as they're showing that it's like, it's clearly less united than we were led to believe in the first season in some ways.
Yeah.
Which I like the idea. I mean, no teams united, right? Like, it's half the plots of Justice League is like, well, Batman's being a dick, or Green Lantern can't be there, whatever it is, like there's always some kind of weird conflict, and showing that on the opposite side makes sense, and I like it. I dig it. And prying apart not just like, what I really liked about last season was that at the end of the day, what they wanted to do, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I can see why you would want to do that. What was like, it was environmentalism or something?
Mm-hmm. But they were going to mind control everybody to make them be better. Essentially, was the plan.
Right. Okay. It was mind control in order to save the world. And I'm like, okay, that's evil and ultimately a good goal, and I find that more interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Like, not just I want dominion over things, is just that, like, things are bad and I want to fix them. And that's ultimately, in a lot of ways, the root of evil. Weird, it's the root of evil. But
the thing that's weird is that in this show you have these, the bad guys are trying to do something good in all the wrong ways, and except the good guys seem to exist only to stop them.
Right. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah, I'm more fascinated with the bad guys than the good guys, because the good guys are boring. Yeah,
and like, you don't see the good guys. I mean, the good guys they're going to school and they're doing their jobs. Like that's what they're doing. They're not like particularly. I mean, I guess you could say forget the wife's name. I forget most of these people's names.
Right. Yeah, and that's a problem, right?
I have never had a problem with that, but that's fine.
She's trying to improve the city or something like that. But but they're not like running around doing good deeds particularly. They're just there to stop the bad guys.
Yeah, I think they've struggled with that a little bit, but I think there are a couple points that work in its favor. One, I mean, they're also teenagers, like, as opposed to having to, like, oh, we need to go say, I mean, they're also in a tiny town in Nebraska, in which, as we saw in the first episode of the season, there's clearly not a lot of crime. So they're limited in their ability to sort of do good deeds and help people and balance that with their lives. I think what I enjoy about this show, perhaps more than other people, is I think it has a very distinctive vibe that reminds me of kind of like an 80s Spielberg movie, like an E.T. or...
Yeah.
And I kind of enjoy that tone to it, that it is smaller in scale, it feels like, and it has like the kids like running around town, or like, something like Stranger Things or something, where it's like there's weird stuff happening in this town and we happen to have superpowers and whatever, but we're also people who live in this town and we're just sort of like, we're kids, right? So we don't have necessarily the authority or ability to do things that adults would do. Right. But yeah, I don't know, that there is a atmosphere and a tone to it that I enjoy.
One of the things I liked about this app was the time in the diner.
Yeah.
Like that they're dressed in like 50s costumes. They're drinking malts. Like, it felt like an Archie comic,
right?
Which is, like a weird Back to the Future-esque.
Also a show.
Crystallized. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I don't mean the show. I mean the actual comic. It's like it's an adulation, or it's a cultural ethos from the 1950s of America,
which makes sense too, because
I liked it.
The JSA is a 1950s fundamentally kind of golden age organization, right? So I think they're trying to summon some of that.
I agree, and I think they leaned into it. I enjoyed it. They've been doing a good job setting the world up as sort of what you're describing, Dan. I think my issue with last week was that, like, I don't know, stop signs falling from the sky is going to get somebody's attention, and it breaks sort of the tension of the world that we've built, right? Like, a lot of the stuff is supposed to be happening under everybody's nose. Meanwhile, there's Jim Gaffigan is like shooting stop signs at children. Like, that's a little off. It's a little off what I would have expected, I guess.
Yeah. And those bad guys were very cartoonish.
I mean,
I told you last week, John. I grew up stealing brownie cookies. I don't know. Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah, it didn't bother me last week because I didn't feel like those characters needed to be three-dimensional. So
no, I don't know.
They're the kids on.
I thought it was a little.
They're the kids on bikes chasing you as a kid, right?
Let's not relitigate. That episode is closed, Dan.
Okay,
we talked about it last week.
I didn't get to talk about it.
Hey, man, you don't put in the work, you don't get the vote. That's all I'm saying.
Be very careful with the kind of precedents you're making.
Was replaced with an Alex.
Wow, man, are you really upset? Be careful with the precedents I'm making.
I'm just saying, if you have to do work in order to get your hits. I did post that episode.
Oh my God, you're actually hurt. You're like mad at me.
I'm not mad. I'm just,
you're a little bit
mad. He's just going to get even.
I'm just disappointed.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're a little bit mad. Okay, buddy. Love you.
I worry a little bit about the payoff on keeping secrets. First of all, we don't
as always
secrets very much.
I agree. Not the best.
And I'm concerned that, like, when we find out what they're keeping from them, it's going to be disappointing and stupid. But
we already know that he killed a 10-year-old girl, which feels like what is worse than that?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll find out. But
well, I mean, going back to what John and I were saying last week, I think, John, you were a little down on their parenting style. Yes. And I was like, well, wait a second. No, like, that's, you definitely don't want these children wrapped up in this. Like, there's no way in real life you would do this. And it's like, somebody killed a 10-year-old girl, and you're contemplating letting not only your
I just think
stepdaughter, but your actual
their default mode is to splash cold water on everything.
It's boring writing on that part for sure. Yeah,
right.
And I think you struggle a little bit with the idea of, and this sort of goes back to what you were talking about there, which is how real is this world, right? Is this our world, or is this a facsimile of our world in which weird and magical, for lack of a better term, things happen? And it doesn't entirely, I agree with you that it doesn't always manage to thread that needle of having stuff feel like it's both grounded in reality as well as has these outlandish things happen. I think last season did that a little bit better than this season so far. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this. I am intrigued by the idea that not only is Dr. Midnight alive, but we also have seen the Starman or some facsimile of him wandering around, and so I have questions about that too. So I'm intrigued with some of the stuff they've been dropping, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of curious as to see how the payoff in this all works.
Right.
Anyway,
do you want to do the ritual?
Yeah, let's do a rating. Who would like to get? Guy, why don't you?
Strong Biff.
Oh, okay.
Strong Biff to the A. It's beautifully shot. B. Sportsmaster. Come on.
Yeah.
I can't believe that was a running joke on our show for so many years, and then it's
finally paid off.
It paid off
way more than we thought it would, right? Like, there's no way that
in a completely different way. I mean, I was expecting some, ridiculous, over the top, stupid,
like a one-off villain.
They just have nailed that character so well.
He's so great, like a one-off villain on Arrow that shoots tennis balls at him, and he's like, "Guess what? I've been shooting tennis balls a lot." And I it could have been like a joke, bad guy, but no, he's awesome. That set of characters, I feel, is I don't know, the acid or whatever it is that balances out the meal that is the show. Last week was too saccharine for me. It was far too sweet, and it was too much. This week I loved it, and it's not that I love people being mean, but I love the way they love each other, and they are clearly insane, and their goal is, I mean, they express it all the time. Our daughter Sebeste, she's going to succeed, and they're hard on her, and they're like, it's just, it works. That dynamic works for me. I love it, and seeing that in contrast to what Stargirl and Mike and whatever that family is doing and that group is doing, really helps balance it out for me. So yeah, it's a really strong Biff. And I owe you an apology, Dan. I didn't like last week's episode.
You don't owe me an apology for not liking something.
Yeah, you're mad at. We've just established that you're very furious at me.
You can hear it in my voice.
I can. I definitely can.
It's the raw anger.
So no, I do. It's last week didn't do it for me. First couple felt like they were setting the scene. This week, I was reminded why I really enjoy watching this show. So yeah, strong Biff.
I will say, as a note, they did. I think I sent to you guys that they announced that those two, the Crocs, will be series regulars in season 3, which I thought was interesting.
Which
don't know where that's going, but yeah,
right.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it could change our rating. If our overall ratings.
Or I thought you say our overall rating system. Like now, all of a sudden, Biff is a sports master.
If they manage to thread them in a good way, then I think because every time they're in the show, I love it.
Yeah,
it makes me excited about the show again.
Me too.
John, you got a rating?
So I mean, obviously, mine is also a Biff, and mostly because of their presence, but also I kind of like the way they teased the stuff with Courtney and the Shade, and I don't like the secret keeping thing at the end, but I'm willing to see where that goes, and I mean, anytime you make your characters complex, it's really good. And they've seemed to, even though, like I said, I think the British stuff is over the top. I think he's complex enough to make him interesting, and the Crocs are so complex. It's just constantly delightful.
Yeah. Well, surprising nobody, I'm giving this one an Alex, clearly. No, I'm not. I'm giving it a Biff as well because I really enjoyed this show. I agree with you. I think the Crocs are some of the best villains this has to offer. I enjoyed the Shade a lot. I think they softened him out even a bit this week. He's not quite as British as he was last week. He's not sitting around drinking his tea in his top hat. And I like that the Crusher calls him, a scone gobbling?
Yeah, he had some long...
He's sucking scone gobbler, which I thought was pretty great. I think this show it's got a vibe that I really enjoy. I like that it's so distinct from a lot of the other shows. It continues to look really good for the most part. And I am intrigued with where they're going. It's a slow roll kind of show, but I think that kind of works. I don't think having them out fighting bad guys every week would necessarily be an improvement. So I'm kind of just sort of taking it one episode at a time, and we'll see how it goes. But I enjoyed it.
Good. Also, I really do want to stick watching the show. Unless it gets real dumb.
We've watched Dumber.
We have,
That's true. We stuck through some seasons of Arrow that were pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
We cut our teeth on seasons of Arrow that were bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that are bad, but not in perhaps that way.
Yes.
Why don't we talk about What If, John? What if we talked about What If?
What if? The Watcher gives us a previously on What If. Then in this reality, Christine goes with Strange to the event where he gets in the car before he doesn't get there, gets in the car accident, and she gets killed in the car crash. Not that he did, but his hands got killed. Strange's heart is broken instead of his hands. He still goes to Kamar-Taj and trains and fights Dormammu. Then he sits in the Sanctum Sanctorum full of regret. He uses the Time Stone to go back to the car ride and is all sweet with Christine, but she dies anyway. So then he tries again going a different way in the car, and she still gets killed. And then he tries to get her to stay home, and then they get pizza, and so on, and she dies every time. Finally, the Ancient One shows up and tells him that her death is an absolute point in time. He won't stop trying to bring her back, and the Ancient One says she has to stop him. She blasts him, and he wakes up in a jungle where a monk-like man named Obeng guides him to a temple, which is guarded by ruins. He then falls into a pit, and Obeng shows up, and he tells him that he's looking for Cagliostro, who it said could break a fixed point in time. Obeng takes him to the library where he finds a book on time manipulation. The books the book says that you have to absorb other beings, and he summons what looks like the monster from the first episode, and it ends badly. Obeng tries to talk him out of what he's doing, but he decides to take the power of these creatures, and he basically eats a gnome, which I thought was pretty funny. And then some other creatures, including what looked like Mephisto, I believe, before he finally gets back and eats the big thing from the beginning. Time passes as he absorbs these creatures, and Obeng grows old, and I think on his deathbed, I couldn't really tell if he died there, but he tells Strange that he's only half a man, and maybe the other Strange will listen to common sense. We go back to when he was grieving in the Sanctum, and Strange then decides to not wallow. He goes outside, and there's some bad stuff going around. People sort of seem to be melting. And the Ancient One appears again, and she warns him that his other self is causing the destruction of the world. When she blasted him, she split him in two, allowing two timelines in one universe. She says that saving Christine will cause a temporal paradox, which is bad, and that he has to stop the other Strange because he's the only one powerful enough. Strange casts a protection spell, and then he's sucked down a hole. The other Strange appears and says they have to become whole again to save Christine. Fight, fight, fight. Strange gets sucked into the bad Strange, and he sees Christine, but it's the bad Strange, not actually Christine. More fight, fight, fight. The protection spell is broken, and bad Strange absorbs good Strange, and then pulls Christine out of the car and revives her, but she is repulsed by him because he looks horrible. She starts dissolving, and the universe starts collapsing. He sees the Watcher and begs him for help, but to punish himself instead of Christine in the world, but the Watcher won't get involved. The universe collapses, and Christine dissolves, and that's it.
Man, Not speaking of things that were not
the feel good, the feel good episode of the summer.
This is a thought that occurred to me today as I was running back in my head over the previous episodes. I think they were really smart in how they structured this season, because we started off with kind of a couple like fun adventure-y episodes that were much more simple in their concept. We went into a sort of a murder mystery sort of. It was dramatic, but it was funny at the same time. Like, it was jokes, right? There were jokes, even though people were getting murdered off. But it sort of like read that line of like drama and comedy. And this week it's like hard drama slash horror. I mean,
I was pretty surprised at the end there. Like when the credits started, I was like,
you're like, that's
what?
it?
That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. You're dying for a twist there. And it's like, nope. This guy's just...
I think the twist this week, if anything, is his interactions with Uatu, right? Like, the fact that he sees him and they have a conversation, I think is that felt very much like if there is some sort of overarching theme or hook this season, it's somehow related to maybe the Watcher getting involved.
Yeah.
Right. Also, I know I've brought this up a few times. They seem to render Uatu with a darker skin.
They did. I thought that was very clear in this episode. In a way, it was like more ambiguous in earlier episodes, but in this episode, I agree with you 100%. That seemed like what they were doing.
So it's nice to see that, just because, whatever. Like, A, doesn't matter. They're aliens. B, whatever. Just go with it. We don't need... There's nothing implicit about being a giant egg-headed white dude in the notion of being a Watcher, and they even made his face look a little bit like Jeffrey Wright. So, I
like the design of that character. I will say one thing that disappointed me a little bit about this episode was, I think the Doctor Strange movie, and if any indication is the Spider-Man movie with Doctor Strange, has done some really cool looking stuff for all the magic, whereas in this episode I feel like so much of the magic was laser beams, and I thought that was a little
flying everywhere, and
it's just a little boring. It's like, you have animation, you could do whatever you want, right? Like, the canvas is so broad there, it felt like they lacked a little bit of imagination in trying to show interesting ways of the magic working. But it's a fairly minor complaint, but I felt like I wanted a little bit more interesting things than them just shooting laser beams at each other a bunch.
Yeah. The thing I don't understand is, I mean, she lives in the regular universe, right? So I guess that's the difference. I mean, that's the difference between this universe and that universe. Or, I mean, it's just weird. Like, I expected somehow at the end that they were going to managed to massage it by breaking his hands and stuff. I wasn't exactly sure what was going to happen, but I thought that, it would be like, okay, this is how it works out, because it doesn't seem... I mean, she's not a fixed point in time in the MCU.
Or at least her death is not, as far as we know.
Right.
The thing that I got from this is that in the movie, there was very little chemistry there, right? Like,
she is tremendously underutilized in that movie.
Yes.
Yeah. They really did her character a disservice, and especially she's such a great actress. And the whole premise of this is like, what if Doctor Strange lost his love? I'm like, I don't know.
Well, that's he was such a jerk to her in the movie.
He's a real jerk. He's so self-centered.
You don't get the impression that at that point in his life he really appreciated her anyway. So like, that part comes off a little weird as well.
Right. They do ask you to accept that as a premise before the premise they want to present.
Right.
And it's like, okay, these facts are not in evidence, but sure, let's go off that and then tangentially do it.
It's also tricky because it's a character, as we just discussed, who is underutilized and doesn't have a lot to do in that movie. Certainly doesn't have a lot of agency. And the premise of this could be argued to be essentially like, let's just fridge her and, let's literally kill her to motivate our main character. Right. I will say the thing that saves it from being quite that for me is, I think of fridging, and this may be, again, semantically splitting hairs, but I think of fridging something where it's like, you kill off the woman and then the guy goes on his like revenge fueled, doing his motivation elsewhere. Whereas at least in this one, his motivation was to bring her back. And like, so it was more related to her character in the sense of, he is determined to save her, as opposed to, I'm going to take her death and then go off and do something else that makes me so angry. And it's like, you know, it kind of manages to just walk that line for me, but it is not a great look when it's a character that was so underappreciated and underdeveloped.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I get that. I guess, maybe the ultimate what if is like, what if Doctor Strange loved his girlfriend? How about that? You know, like
that episode's a little less, you know, flashy, but yeah.
Well, because I mean, she didn't want to go with him. Like in the movie, he invites her and to go to that talk, and she's like, "Yeah, it just seems boring. I don't want to be there." And like, mostly he's being a dick. Like they're clearly,
I mean, dating. It's more like I'm not dating you anymore because. There's nothing that I can get out of it.
Right. But they've been dating for a while, and they don't live together. It doesn't feel like they're completely invested in each other, and he's kind of a jackass to her all the time, despite having, you know, like they're very, very familiar with each other. They're honest with each other, which is, you know, dating style. But it didn't lead me to believe that he would bend the universe.
Right.
Break the universe for her.
I feel
maybe that's.
Go ahead.
Maybe that's where we could have gone, is like, go from the movie where it's a bad relationship and then have him realize that, like, I just screwed up. Like, the actual thing I care about is this relationship that I was taking for granted. That feels like that was the first draft of the script. And then, like, okay, well, we got 30 minutes and we can't really do that.
It feels like a better story. Yeah, I agree with you.
What did I lose? I lost this thing that I loved that I didn't appreciate. Like my hands for doing my work and the love of my life because I'm rich and I'm arrogant and I'm a dick. And I lost both of those. And I think that would have been... I think that's probably where this idea started, and where it went was a little bit more circumspect or like limited, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that the struggle with that in the movie is that you fundamentally have a character whose defining trait is like their arrogance and their callousness to a degree. And it's a bit of a struggle to deal with. Well, like you said, does that cause him to be isolated in terms of his relationships? And thus, we don't really buy into his relationship with Christine if it's like, well, this guy's a jerk. What would anybody see in him, right?
Right, but I do think that
I
do think that the Doctor Strange, maybe at the end of Endgame, might have gone back and realized that, like, oh my god, I missed what was most important to me this whole time.
Well, and
but again, 30 minutes. We got to keep things moving.
She is in the next movie. I was about to say that it does surprise me that she was willing to, like, I guess she had a good experience enough to be willing to come back for both voicing this and showing up in the next movie. Like, or the contract was great, but you kind of also feel like, well, they haven't shied away from cutting characters when they felt like it, like, you know, for example, Natalie Portman is not in Ragnarok because that character didn't fit, and they clearly were like, yeah, well, we didn't feel that it was necessary for this movie. So one would hope that they're going back into it feeling like, okay, we have a reason for her to continue being in this franchise.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's also the not ugly aspect. I mean, there's the realistic aspect of like, well, Marvel keeps asking me to do stuff, so sure.
Well, I'm sure she got paid and hopefully paid well.
I'm gonna get money. You want me around? Fine. Like, do I want to give up another movie that I think will be more artistically fulfilling for me in order to, I don't know, push a gurney around in Doctor Strange 2? Maybe not, you know, but yeah, voice work and agreeing to stuff. And I think I get the impression that Natalie Portman came back because they actually gave her a role.
I think that's a big part of it. And I'm sure Taika Waititi did not, being able to sell that.
There's no way he's being
Right, like
she's going to get the hammer.
Right, that's my point. It's like, but if you have a director who seems to really like have a vision for it and is coming to you with like, look, I got this great idea. This is how we're going to do it. And if it's somebody as talented as Taika Waititi, then I feel like, you wouldn't say no to that. That's a good pitch, right?
There's so much trust there. There's like, okay, well, Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm hoping that it's something similar.
You've checked several boxes.
Yeah, I'm hoping something similar with Doctor Strange, where they are like, look, we think that there's something valuable for you to do in this movie. We've got this pitch for who this character is, and we think you should, maybe even like we didn't realize maybe the first movie didn't do a lot of justice there, but we can do better or something. That's what you want to feel is happening.
Right. I really do hope that a conversation started with like, okay, we're sorry.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
sorry.
Yeah.
And, here's what we got. As for this episode, Doctor Strange absorbing all of the angry demons. Fascinating.
Creepy.
Yeah. I liked the way this worked. I really expected good Doctor Strange.
The gnome just did it for me.
The gnome was
the angry gnome that then gets really scared.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I really liked it.
It's like you care a little. You're a little bit like, oh no, not a gnome. Although he's an angry gnome. Oh no, he looks scared. You go through a little bit of a journey there.
Yeah. Did you expect good Doctor Strange to win?
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Even though it made no sense. It's like, okay, this guy's been working for hundreds and hundreds of years to absorb all of this power. Right. He's clearly outclassed.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, you wanted his heart to win. Oh, but he's got heart. He understands. He's going to get him to let go of the past and realize the error of his ways. Mm-hmm. And the answer is no. He's going to get eaten.
I sort of, in a way,
it's weird.
It is weird, but I kind of like it.
In a way, it is akin to the Legends episode that we watched, where Constantine sort of just goes off the rails and in pursuit of power / drug addiction.
Sort of, except I was expecting that, and it didn't. This didn't drag on for
that also works
5
with
episodes.
That's very much a John Constantine trait. Whereas I don't think we expect Doctor Strange to be. He's arrogant, but he's not. Not evil's not quite the right word, but he's not stupid. He's arrogant, but he's not got that same sort of bastardy quality to him that Constantine does.
Yeah.
The thing is, this is a character who has gone to great lengths to just based on the movie, I think he's overly invested in a relationship that I don't think he had any real interest in.
Maybe in that universe he did.
Maybe, but
I think that's what you have to go with.
That's the thing we got to let go. But also, he gets addicted to drugs in order to sort of somehow come back to the love of his life, right? He embraces escapism with a fantasy that he can recapture the love that he had. And it's a fallacy, and he finds himself trapped in his own cage, which is the ultimate endpoint for any addict. And that's deep and weird, and it's a cartoon. But I think that's basically the point of the story, right? You can find yourself literally chasing the dragon, or the many tentacled beast in this case, in order to try to achieve a feeling that you had or something that you'd lost. And it's a dark episode. Real dark.
Yeah, I kind of like that
they did it well.
I kind of like that it's a thing where everybody keeps telling him, you can't change this. It is impossible. Yes. You cannot change this. And he's like, I'm not going to listen. I'll find a way around. Right? In a way that we expect our heroes to. But in the end, it was no, it was really not possible, and it was bad.
It's
listen
not
to those people.
It's not possible because just forget the mechanics of magic. It's not possible because he keeps reinvesting in his I got a miracle cure, right? He's going down the wrong path, and people are trying to tell him that look, you're going to have to just accept this, and he refuses to, and it pushes him further and further away from where he needs to be.
Right. And it's an analogy to any of us, who have struggled with letting go of things in the past, right? Because none of us can travel through time at all in that direction, unless you guys are holding out on me. And I could re-edit last week's show if you want. I let it go. I'm done.
All the ratings good.
I could do that, but I won't tamper with the past. I mean, I think it is I think what you're saying, and I agree with you, is that there's a thematic thing that applies to all of us here, right? And I think that's where this really works. Is it's this idea of becoming stuck in the past and not letting go, and that's fundamentally the point, right? Right, the decision point in this episode, if there is one, is the Strange who decides, I'm not going to wallow in going back to the past. It was a little unclear to me exactly, because we talked in the recap, you mentioned like she splits him, she blasts him, and that's when she apparently split him, which made me wonder if he tried to do all that stuff and then she like knocked him out, of the past or whatever, and he's like, well, all right, maybe I should. That's the point at which he decided to walk away. It does not entirely cut like that, but it is. That was kind of where I felt like the decision point was for the choice. His choice was to either stop living in the past or to dwell on the past.
I'm not sure it matters in the bifurcation of the character. When it happens, when it's realized, when he's cognizant of it, is sort of irrelevant to the story that's being told, right? And I think the reveal of the sort of splitting him into two is, I don't know, maybe it's like a moment of clarity in his struggle. But yeah, I don't know if it matters. I like the way it fell in the story beats. We saw a bunch of stuff. We built up with this guy. We're like, okay, I guess this is going to succeed. But it seems like you're compromising a lot. And then just as we sort of reached that crescendo, we got to like, oh, wait, you got split in two, and you are the sort of the bad guy is the most fixated on, quote unquote, solving a problem, which doesn't work. And the good guy is, accepting a situation that he can't change and willing to let that go.
Yeah.
And when that happened in the timeline, I don't think it matters because we're presented with the story in a way that communicates to us. And I think they did a really, really good job on that. I really, really appreciated sort of the way they laid everything out.
It does make me wonder how if there are tie-ins with, there's a thematic, again, resonance with that and the Spider-Man trailer that we've now seen, right? Yeah. Where it's like, it's about Peter trying to change the past in some ways.
Yeah, that's true.
It makes you wonder, maybe this Strange needs to learn that lesson.
Yeah, and the tentacle monster.
He's not changing the past, and it's not a fixed point. But I mean,
meddling.
It's meddling. Yes, for sure.
The Spider-Man trailer.
It's unclear exactly what they're doing, but they're trying to change something that happened.
Sounds like, hey, let's wipe the minds of everybody in the whole world.
Yeah,
which
also bad. Yeah. Don't do that.
Although he says he's changing reality, so I don't. Who knows? Whatever.
Who knows?
It's magic.
I wanted to ask
whatever it wants to be.
Did you guys think the tentacle monster was the same one from the Captain Carter episode?
I did.
I definitely did.
Yeah. I did mention that.
Okay. I said
it looked like the thing from the first episode.
Yeah. I think some people I saw some disagreement about that, but I feel like if you're going to put two tentacle monsters, they're probably the same one, right?
No, don't put two. It would be the dumbest thing. There's one tentacle monster, and
there's only one. His name is George, and he lives in a dimension that's beyond the stars, okay?
And he just wants to be left alone.
Just leave the guy alone.
Well, also, this is $1 billion plus company.
They know from tentacle monsters.
They're not going to confuse you with 8 models of tentacle monster. This is not Apple in like the 90s, Like,
well, do you want your centrist tentacle monster? Do you want your quasi tentacle monster?
Yeah, 688 or whatever it is.
Sure.
6800
tentacle monsters. Yeah. I need one of every tentacle monster.
Should we rate this one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
Me.
Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm giving it a biff. It's not the strongest biff. It's B, probably a B biff.
It's a weak biff.
Because I enjoyed it overall, and I think it does raise some good themes. I felt like it made some weird assumptions that didn't seem to jive with what was what we know in the universe that we know of. And then it ended weirdly, which was good and bad, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I thought that was surprising. But I enjoyed it, and that's it. I don't know where to end.
Compelling. Yeah.
You're trying to make me mad at you too now? Is that...
Maybe. I don't know. I think I may thrive on conflict. So
yeah.
Possibly true. No, I really enjoyed this one. It paid off sort of the concept of what if could be. The first few were great. I really love them. I think my favorite is probably still the Captain Carter thing. You need to establish the premise, as Dan was saying, and then you can start expanding. The previous episode, killing all of the Avengers, cool. That definitely set you up for like, okay, things are going to be different. And this episode was bleak, and those what if comics were often kind of bleak, like things would go bad. I do think it asks you to proceed from a set of evidence that's not in fact. Like his relationship is not that. And the premise is that what if he lost the love of his life? And I don't know how that is. That's him. That is literally him. And he did his hands.
Right.
He loved being an arrogant jackass, and he loved his ability to do his work, and he was so self-absorbed that, like losing his ability, his motor control over his hands, lost him the love of his life, which was sort of the basis of his arrogance. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of mental acuity there and knowledge, but his ability to actually perform the task that he thought he was, the best in the world at it. At the same time, I really, really like this episode because I think it stretched things further than we've seen before. I liked the notion of losing at the end. Like, the good guy loses, and we find our hero, like the person we've followed through all of this, trapped in a reality of their own creation. And I think that's not a story you could tell in any other medium. I don't think it's something you can put on screen. I don't, you want your good guy to win, or at least have a chance of winning.
Genre.
Sorry. Yeah. Like, for this genre, for superhero stuff.
For Marvel.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I admire them for having done that. And for that, I just want to. It's a biff. It's a really. I mean,
they lose in Infinity War, but there's another movie.
Right.
Well, yeah,
a year later. So you're like, okay. I mean, they lost now, but they'll win tomorrow.
Right. So it's the end of Empire, right? It's the the downbeat. But this is it, pretty much, as far as we can tell.
Right. Spidey and T'Challa and Black Panther get ghosted, or whatever, blipped, whatever we're calling it. And you're like, okay, that is about $3 billion worth of profit, and we know they're coming back. So don't do that. But this felt like a legitimate attempt to tell a story about a guy that went off the rails and went too far. He's an escape. He thinks he can control everything, and when he learns that he can't, he gets into a rut trying to do so, fueled by the escapist notion of, effectively drugs or alcohol or magic, sort of like what we saw with Constantine. And I appreciated that they try to tell that story, and that's fascinating to me. So yeah, it's a biff.
Yeah, I agree with Guy, actually. I think it's a biff. I mean, I think for all the reasons he just described, I like that they took a big swing here. even if it's something that made me uncomfortable. And I felt like, oftentimes I rewatch these.
I don't like being uncomfortable.
I know you don't. That's why you wear Mac Weldon. No, it's all right. They're not a sponsor. I got nothing.
It's true though.
But I like that they were willing, and I think, Guy, you nailed it by saying like this, they really can't tell this story in any of the other, like in the rest of this franchise. There's really no other opportunity to tell a bleak story or, frankly, close to like flat out horror in some ways than doing it on this show. And that's kind of what the amazing thing about What If is that you can just say, yeah, let's do something. Let's have Doctor Strange split into two, and the bad version wins. And you're like, what? We can't do. They don't. Well, we can. I often rewatch these, but I didn't rewatch this because I was like, I actually don't think I can watch that again. Like, it was a little knowing where it is going. I feel a little bit more like I liked it. I appreciate what they did. I don't necessarily feel the need to rewatch it, but I absolutely appreciate everything about that. It does have some weak points in establishing that relationship, which, as we've all said, feels like it was from a different universe. I enjoyed that they got, a lot of people back to do not a lot of, Rachel McAdams gets arguably more to do here than in the movie.
Yeah, really.
Benedict Wong, I like Wong a lot, and I wish we'd had a little more time with him. Tilda Swinton gets a lot of time. Tilda Swinton came back. You got Tilda Swinton to do your cartoon. That's amazing. I love it. And I don't know. It's a weird one. I feel like I know the zombie episode is floating out there too, and now I have a lot more feelings.
To me at some point, like, is bringing her back going to create the zombie universe?
I don't know, but like I'm a little wary now, right? Because now we've established this idea.
It didn't seem like it because they destroyed that universe.
Sure,
that universe
I guess what I'm saying is I'm a little wary now that we've established the premise of, look, we can tell a story in which things are not going to end the way that you expect them to.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
To know that with 5 more episodes of this, we could be in store for some dark stuff. Like, there could be some interesting choices, and I honestly have no idea. I literally have no idea.
Those are all getting Alex's from me, man. More likely, I will lightly biff them.
You will. That sounds like
think reviews like fine. Maybe we'll Alex.
Anyways, I thought this one gets a biff. I think it was fascinating and intriguing. I think I feel a way. I never watched the movie Requiem for a Dream. But I feel the way that people describe that movie to me, which is that movie is really good, but I never want to see it again.
I think this is not anywhere close to the world of Requiem for a Dream, but it's very cute that you think that.
No, but I definitely feel like I've watched some movies that are dark and unpleasant at times that I think are really well made.
I understand. Yeah,
and I was like, it's really good. I just don't want to watch that again. But there you go.
I feel like it's a little bit more close to like The Thing.
Fair enough.
John Carpenter.
John
Carpenter movie. Yeah.
Oh, because the monster becoming a monster.
Well, I mean, a little bit, but a little bit that, but just also like, anyway, I don't want to give away a 40-year-old movie.
There you go. I don't know if we know what next week's episode is of What If. I think there are often a trailer popping around at some point, but it may be too early for that. I did see that before this episode came out, I did see a trailer online somewhere that at least showed Doctor Strange, but I didn't watch it. So we'll see. We've also got Shang-Chi comes out this weekend. I don't know if you guys are going to see it. I'm not sure if I'm going to see it.
I'm so tempted. I'm fully vaccinated.
I'm tempted, but I don't think I'm going to do it.
I know.
I'm going to look at...
It's killing me. It's really... Well, it's not killing me. It's doing the exact opposite of killing me. But I would really, really, really love to re-engage with the world. And I'd like to give my money to that movie. Looks fun.
Right.
I don't necessarily want to advocate for that.
Yeah, I am gonna sort of play it by ear and see if I can find a showing where there's not a lot of people going, and I might then go, but I'm not committed to it. So, and it's sad because there's a 45-day window on it, so we'll see. I'm very curious to see if it underperforms its opening weekend. I'm curious to see if they'll backpedal, but I think that's something going.
I saw an article yesterday saying that a lot of people were expecting it to have like the best box office
Yeah, it probably will. Honestly,
something like expected 90 million in the first weekend.
I think it will do very well because most people are still not making good decisions.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And I think that I think there is. If it had not been for the whole Scarlett Johansson lawsuit, I think they might have considered trying to put it on Disney Plus. But because of that, I think they definitely will not.
Maybe.
Oh,
yeah.
So, well, wait, that would make a lawsuit.
There are other ways around that. You don't have to put it on on streaming and then not pay your leads.
Also true.
Exactly.
He's probably not as Simu Liu is probably not as high a paycheck as Scarlett Johansson either. Is my guess.
No, probably not.
And that's it. Like the negotiation there is going to be like, well, we're going to do this, and it's not to get into your other show, but that's like Apple telling developers what the news is. Like, okay, this is the new deal. And I say, okay, I guess.
Right.
I guess that's what's happening now. Yeah.
Well, we may talk about that at some point. We'll see. But we'll definitely be back next week to talk about the next episode, the finale of Legends, the next episode of Stargirl, the next episode of What If. So that should be a lot of fun. And as always, I will remind you that you can go buy shirts, fantastic shirts that John Moltz has created expressly for you.
That's correct.
Go over
there's so many of them.
Yeah, there's more, and I assume only more to come. Can I have an evil Doctor Strange cape? Is that in the?
No,
sorry, I forgot to mention.
I'll have to check Cotton Bureau, but I don't think they make capes.
That's a shame. I forgot to mention that one of my high points of this episode was the cape versus cape fight, which I think was fantastic.
Yeah,
it was the best. Like the bad cape is blocking him, and then
the way they're like going back and
dancing around each other. There was not a ton of humor in this episode, so every little bit where they did have a smidge of it, it was really well apportioned.
The good cape, basically jumping in front of a bullet.
Yeah,
right. I was like, oh my god,
not the cape! I was so upset.
I know. Yeah, it's like killing the dog, right?
Yeah, right. Or it's like that scene in Aladdin when the carpet gets shot. It's a lot like the carpet.
But to finish the shirt thought, go to cottonbureau.com and search on Biffcast if you want to find the shirts.
Buy some shirts. And we'll be back next week. Of course, I would like to thank my fantastic co-hosts who are just beacons of sunshine and optimism. John Moltz, thanks for being here.
I dive in front of an energy blast, either of you guys.
Oh, wow. That's actually really nice. That's like the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. Guy English, always a pleasure.
Same, except the fact that he changed it from die to dive.
Well, see, that's the thing.
Feels like when he said it, he got less committed to the notion.
I also clarified energy blast because neither of you is ever going to have an energy blast sent at you.
Right. You don't know that.
Yeah,
it could happen. You're not the boss of me.
No, I just really admire the way you constrain a circumstance that will never happen, and yet still want to walk away feeling great about yourself.
Look, I'm not going to dive in front of a bullet, but I'll drive you to the hospital afterwards.
I wanted you guys to feel good about me.
I swear to God, if one of us gets bucked off that gray whale that we're riding, I will catch you.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Did you have something you want to say?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was mean to you last week.
You weren't. It's fine.
Love you, and I'm so very, very, very glad that you're back. I really, really am.
It's good to be back. I miss talking about superhero shows with you, and that's the most frustrating thing always, Trevor.
It's really James we don't like.
Yeah.
That's not true at all. That's not true.
Well,
that's not true at all.
If you liked him, you'd release that episode you recorded with him.
It's whoever's not on the podcast. That's what we
Oh my God!
Why? Sorry.
You're so mad at me. You're so mad at me.
I miss the show. The worst thing about listening to a show when I'm not on is I want to talk to you guys about it and I can't. So I'm always like, let's say something here, but I can't because you're recordings. But I'm sure many of our...
It's an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'm sure most of our readers have that thought as well. And we'd like to thank them, as always, for checking out the transcripts and supporting us, supporting the show. We really appreciate it. It means a lot to us. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
dun, dun.